Grace and peace to you, friends. Welcome to the Oak Tree Journeys. My name is Mandy Oaks, and this is the Encyclopedia Challenge. If this is your first time here, you may wonder, what in the world is an Encyclopedia Challenge? Well, an Encyclopedia Challenge is where I read the entire encyclopedia to you, and I'm reading from two different encyclopedias. One is our main one so far, unless I can find the rest of the volumes, we'll switch over. But we're reading from the New Imperial Encyclopedia and Dictionary of 1909 and the Encyclopedia Americana of 1956. So I'm very excited that you're here. All of you who have been listening, thank you so much for coming back. I'm very excited. We are still in the A's, but we are getting through it. I am just thrilled. Whenever I was doing the list today, I was so excited. I found a mistake in one of the encyclopedias, and you can probably guess which one it was. But we'll get into that one later. And if you're on YouTube, you could probably see Strength of Mind is Exercise, Not Rest by Pope. And those of you on the podcast, our quote of the month is Strength of Mind is Exercise, Not Rest by Pope. And as mentioned, I believe last week, we'll try this new thing where we're going to do a new quote per month. So that's our quote. And if you remember from last week, I was going to the cemetery with my grandfather, and if you're on YouTube, you can kind of see a picture of it. If you're on the podcast listening, there's a picture of the cemetery we went to. I didn't end up driving my grandfather there. It ended up being a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, no. I need to drive him. But no, it ended up being very, very close, and we had a great time. He showed me where he was born. We went around town a little bit, and it was fantastic. So I'm glad I got to spend that time with my grandfather. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. We stopped with atoms, and guess what? We get to start with atoms. We stopped with Adams, Charles Follen, or Charles Follen Adams. So today, we start with Adams, Charles Francis, LLD, or Charles Francis Adams, LLD. Okay, and as usual, we are going to start with the New Imperial Encyclopedia and Dictionary of 1909. Now, I say as usual, but because I was going to start with the Encyclopedia Americana, but then I realized the names were exactly the same. So let's go ahead and take a look at who Charles Francis Adams, LLD is. Okay, first, he lived from 1807 to 1886. Born in Boston, son of John Quincy. And there are, as we're going to find out later, there are at least 2 John Quincy Adams that we'll take a look at. It doesn't say yet which John Quincy he's the son of, but we'll keep reading and see if it reveals anything. His boyhood was passed mostly in the European capitals, but he returned to the United States in 1817, so at 10 years old, studied at the Boston Latin schools, and in 1825 graduated from Harvard University. He studied law and was called to the Boston bar, but never practiced. In 1830, he was elected to the legislature of Massachusetts as a representative from Boston, and was afterwards returned to the state Senate. He became a, quote, free soiler in politics, and was nominated by that party in 1848 for vice president on the Van Buren ticket. But Taylor and Fillmore were elected, and on the formation of the Republican Party, a combination of the Free Soilers and Old Line Whigs, Mr. Adams attached himself to the new organization, and in 1859 was sent to Congress. In 1861, President Lincoln appointed Mr. Adams minister to England, and there his hitherto untried diplomatic talents had opportunity, and gained for him the highest respect of the statesmen of Europe and of his own country. It was largely due to the judicious conduct of Mr. Adams that the difficult questions of the Mason and Slidell capture of the building in English shipyards, of blockade runners, and those connected with the Lancashire cotton famine were settled or successfully tided over. He held his post in London till 1868, when at his own request he was recalled. On the ratification, 1871, of the Treaty of Washington, Adams was appointed by President Grant the American arbitrator for the settlement of the claims under that treaty. Here again, his remarkable diplomatic skill was exercised to the advantage of his country in securing the Geneva Award. Adams was a candidate for nomination for the presidency by the Liberal Republicans in 1872, but was defeated in the convention by Horace Greeley. He afterwards retired from the Republican Party and in 1876 was nominated by the Democrats for the governorship of Massachusetts, but was defeated. Adams was the author of biographies of his grandfather and of his father. Okay, so that was Adams, Charles Francis, LLD. Now we actually have another Adams, Charles Francis, but no LLD. So we have Charles Francis Adams, who was railroad president and writer. He was born in Boston in 1835, so much later, on May 27th, son of Charles Francis Adams I. After studying at Harvard College and graduating 1856, he gave 2 years to legal study and was admitted to the bar in 1858. Okay, and he served through the Civil War, being Colonel 5th Massachusetts Colored Cavalry, which he commanded when the city of Richmond capitulated, entering the head of his regent with the Federal Army. He was mustered out 1865 in July with the rank of Brevet Brigade General, appointed a member of the Railroad Commission of Massachusetts in 1869. He became widely known as an expert writer on transportation. He interested himself also in public questions generally, especially education. He was a member of the Board of Overseers of Harvard University in 1882. In 1890, he was elected president of the Union Pacific Railroad. In collaboration with his brother, Professor Henry Brooks Adams, he is author of Chapters of Erie and Other Essays, published in 1871, a series of papers on railroad accidents and on the state and the railroads in 1875 to 1876 for the Atlantic Monthly, Railroads and the Origin and Problems in 1878, Notes on the Railway Accidents of 1879, 3 episodes of Massachusetts history on the settlement of Boston Bay, the Antinomian Controversy, and early town and church government, and in 1893, Massachusetts, its historians and its histories, and its history. In 1895, he was chosen president of the Massachusetts Historical Society, and in 1901, president of the American Historical Association. Association. He has also written Lives of Richard Henry Dana in 1891 and of his father, 1900 American Statesman series. Lee at Appomattox, etc., 1902. And I know I butchered that. And much miscellaneous work. As chairman of the State Park Commission from 1893 to 1895, he contributed materially toward planning out and establishing the great metropolitan park system of Massachusetts. So what I'm gathering is he is the son of the Adams we just discussed, the Charles Francis Adams, LLD. So that is his son, Charles Francis Adams. Okay. And the next person is another Charles Adams. However, it's Adams, Charles Kendall, LLD, who was an educator and historical scholar. And I just love the way they have these births and deaths. They switch back and forth. So I never know, whenever I see a date, I never know what it's for, because they've got the dates, the born and death dates, all mixed up and in different formats in almost every single entry. Or they'll stick with one for several entries and then switch over to another format. So it looks like Adams, Charles Kendall, LLD, the educator and historical scholar, was born in 1835 on January 24th and lived through 1902 on July 27th, born Derby, Vermont. He removed to Iowa, afterward to Michigan, and graduated at the University of Michigan in 1861. He was associate professor of history and Latin in that university. From 1862 to 1867, professor of history, from 1867 to 1885, and was appointed non-resident professor of history at Cornell University in 1881. He succeeded Andrew D. White in the presidency of Cornell in 1885 after a canvass whose excitement called forth a charge of plagiarism against Adams, a charge which, on thorough investigation, entirely failed of support. He received the degree LLD from Harvard in 1886. In 1892, he resigned the presidency of Cornell and became president of the University of Wisconsin. Also editor-in-chief of Johnson's Universal Encyclopedia, Dr. Adams was made president of the American History Association in 1890. He published Democracy and Monarchy in France, 3rd edition, 1877, Manual of Historical Literature, 3rd edition, 1889, Representative British Orations, 3 volumes, 1883, Christopher Columbus, 1892. His contributions were numerous in American and European magazines and reviews. And we have another Charles Adams. This is Adams, Charles R., an American tenor, born Charlestown, Massachusetts in 1848, died in 1900. He studied in Vienna, sang 3 years at the Royal Opera in Berlin, and 9 in the Imperial Opera at Vienna. He was highly reputed as an interpreter of Wagnerian parts. In 1879, he settled in Boston, where he taught with great approval. You can probably hear my little dog in the background. She's wanting to play. She's not happy right now. Okay, and for the next word, and I'm having trouble keeping up with these because my computer, well, actually my printer, is refusing to print. So I'm having to look at my computer for these, and I can't check them off like I normally do. So we're on our 5th name, and for that name, we're going to switch to the Encyclopedia Americana of 1956. So let's take a look. Okay, and this name is Adams, Ephraim Douglas. And he was an American historian and educator, born in Decorah, Iowa, December 18th of 1865, died September 1st of 1930. He graduated at the University of Michigan and secured his Ph.D. there in 1890. The next year, he joined the faculty of the University of Kansas as assistant professor of history and sociology. And from 1899 until 1902, he was professor of European history. For the next 4 years, he was associate professor of history at Leland Stanford University. And in 1906, he became full professor. His books included The Influence of Grenville on Pitt's Foreign Policy in 1904, British Interests and Activities in Texas, 1910, Power of Ideals in American History of 1913, Great Britain and the American Civil War, 2 volumes, 1925. He was the brother of Henry Carter Adams. Okay, and that was Adams, Ephraim Douglas. And these names and the list of words will be on my website, theoaktreejourneys.com. Select Encyclopedia Challenge, and there it is all in order. So you'll have to scroll down if you want to get to this list. But they are all in order, so if you miss a word or if you want to know how it's spelled, just visit theoaktreejourneys.com and select Encyclopedia Challenge. Alright, and our next name, we go back to the New Imperial Encyclopedia and Dictionary of 1909, and that is Adams, Frank Dawson, or Frank Dawson, goodness gracious, Adams, geologist. He was born in Montreal, Canada in 1859 on September 17th, graduated at McGill University in 1878, took advanced courses at Sheffield Scientific School in Yale, and at Heidelberg, applying himself particularly to lithology and physical geology. In 1888, he became lecturer on geology at McGill, and in 1893 succeeded Sir William Dawson as Logan Professor of Geology there. Okay, and the next three names, so we'll have three names all in the Encyclopedia Americana. So let's switch over to that. Okay, and our seventh name is Adams, Franklin Pierce. He was an American journalist and author born in Chicago, Illinois on November 15th in 1881. He graduated at the Armour Institute of Technology in 1899 and in 1903 commenced his career as a newspaper columnist by contributing to the Chicago Journal, a daily feature entitled A Little About Everything. Moving to New York City the next year, he began to contribute to the Evening Mail, a column called Always in Good Humor. He continued this until the end of 1913, and then joined the New York Tribune, naming his column The Conning Tower. He moved his column, still under this title, to the New York World in 1922, thence took it in 1931, when that newspaper ceased publication, to the New York Herald Tribune, and from 1938 to 1941, contributed The Coming Tower to the New York Post. His column, characterized by keen wit and salty comment, enjoyed wide popularity. He became even more widely known, however, as a regular member of Information Please, a weekly radio program broadcast from 1938 until 1948. In 1909, he wrote with O. Henry the musical comedy Lo, and he published numerous volumes of verse and prose, which included Tobogganing on Parnassus in 1910, By and Large in 1914, So There, 1922, So Much Velvet, 1924, Half a Loaf, 1927, Christopher Columbus, 1931. He seems to be a popular person to write about. The Diary of Our Own Samuel Pepys, in 1935, The Melancholy Lute, 1936, Innocent Merriment, an anthology, in 1942. Okay, and our next name, as promised, is still in the Encyclopedia Americana, is Adams, Frederick Upham, or Frederick Upham Adams. He was an American inventor and author. Love those inventors. Born Boston, Massachusetts on December 10th of 1859, died Larchmont, New York, August 28th of 1921. In boyhood, he moved to Elgin, Illinois, and from 1882 until 1890, he was a mechanical engineer in Chicago, Illinois. There he invented an electric lamp post in 1886. He also designed in 1900 a locomotive for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad capable of traveling 100 miles an hour. He was labor editor of the Chicago Tribune, and in 1893 he founded the New Time, a reform magazine. So he was busy. We could thank him for the electric lamp post, as well as the railroads that travel over 100 miles an hour. So faster railroads. Okay, our next name is Adams, Hannah. And we're still in the Encyclopedia Americana. She was an American author, born Medfield, Massachusetts, on October 2nd, 1755, died in Brookline, Massachusetts, December 15th, 1831. She was probably the first woman in the country to support herself by writing. Oh, there we go. Several of her books were compilations. She compiled Views of Religious Opinion in 1784, the title of which was changed in the 4th edition to Dictionary of Religions. Other works by her included History of New England in 1799, Evidences of Christianity in 1801, History of the Jews in 1812. Hannah Farnham Lee, 1780 to 1865, edited her memoirs, 1832. Oh, wow. If anyone has heard of her or has read any of her books, again, that is Hannah Adams or Adams, Hannah, let me know. If you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments below. If you're on the podcast, go to theoaktreejourneys.com and select contact, and just let me know if you've listened or read any of her works. She sounds like a really cool lady. Okay, and for our last word before break, and actually before we read the last name before break, just want to make a comment. I did finish the crown challenge, and that was where I had to name each of the crowns, a name of a famous person or group or musician. So I stuck with music. So I called them Mandy's Musical Colors, and when we come back from break, I will share one of those colors with you. And for our last entry before break, we go to the New Imperial Encyclopedia and Dictionary of 1909, and we have Adams, Henry, who was also an author, and he was born in Boston, 1838 on February 16th, the third son of Charles Francis A. the First. He studied at Harvard College, graduating in 1858. On his father's appointment as U.S. Minister to the Court of St. James, he accompanied him to England, acting as his private secretary from 1861 to 1868. After his return, became assistant professor of history at Harvard, which position he held from 1870 to 1877, being editor of the North American Review during the latter portion of that period. He is author of Essays in Anglo-Saxon Law in 1876, documents relating to New England federalism from 1800 to 1815, and that was 1877, Life of Albert Gallatin in 1879, Writings of Albert Gallatin, edited 3 volumes, 1879, John Randolph, 1882, but his life work, and with one exception, the foremost historical work of America in matter and style, is his History of the United States from 1801 to 1817. That is the presidencies of Jefferson and Madison, 9 volumes, published 1889 to 1891. So there we go. And with that, we are going to go on break. And when we get back, we are going to start with Adams, Henry Carter, or Henry Carter Adams. And we'll be right back. Hi, I hope you enjoyed that segment from my podcast, The Oak Tree Journeys, from the Encyclopedia Challenge. To hear the entire episode, please visit the link at the bottom in the description. And please don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe and share it to anyone you know who wants to read the entire encyclopedia or who's just interested in words. Thank you again and have a blessed day.